Hey guys, I'm hanging out in Fullerton, California. I was just at Sam's shop, the Electric Bicycle Center, and he's been carrying this BESV TRB1 for a while. Really sharp bike. I mean, just totally stands out. It reminds me of Bumblebee from Transformers because it has this plastic shielding down here and right here. Kind of looks like a gas tank or something. This is an electric bicycle, right? It's not a motorcycle. This was a class 1, meaning it would go up to 20 miles per hour, and it was legal to use on a number of trails in the California area and beyond. But BESV's taken it a little bit further, and they've made it class 3 now. So instead of using the older Brose T model, this is the Brose TF, so fast. Trekking fast is what that stands for. Very similar characteristics, 90 Newton meters of torque, 250 to like 530 watts output. There's no shift detection or anything, but this is one of the quieter motors because it has a carbon belt drive, transitioning from sort of the gearing system and then your cranks. There's that belt, so it's not like gears on gears. You'll be able to hear that later when we do some ride tests, but it's measuring your rear wheel speed. There's a little magnet down there, your pedal cadence and your pedal torque. It's just phenomenal, and I love that BESV spec'd a narrow wide chain ring here, so it's going to keep your chain on track. You'll notice there are no chain covers or any extra guides, but I haven't had any problems with this bouncing off or slipping. And then in the back, they've upgraded. It used to be 11 to 40 tooth, now it's 46. So we got that really, really big sprocket, and that's gonna help you climb. Down here, Shimano Dior XT with the one-way clutch, so you can put that in the down position if you're servicing the wheel and taking it off, or maybe you're just cruising around town, you're not going as fast or maybe hitting all that bumpy terrain. And then when you are, put it in the up position, it just tightens that spring. That's a mountain bike specific feature there, and I really appreciate it, especially on a speed pedelec like this. There are very few full suspension plus size tires, mountain bikes that can go up to 28 miles per hour. And part of that is because it's hard to find a trail where that's technically legal. So it might be a private property situation or off-highway vehicle. It's definitely a fun experience, but on the other hand, it's difficult to climb the really steep stuff going fast. I was doing some riding on our way here to this park where we're filming, and I was going 28, on the pavement, and then, we hit an incline a little bit, and it dropped down to 27, 26, and so I shifted my gears down to kind of keep my cadence going to add power. But the bike's, 60 pounds. This is heavier than a lot of other full suspension electric bikes, in large part because of the battery here. This is roughly 36 volts, 21 amp hours. A lot of times you see like 36 volts, 11 amp hours, or 13, but 21, I mean, it's enormous, like huge capacity there to help you go further, to help move the additional weight and, fight the drag of these tires. These are Schwalbe knobby neck tires. They're plus size, so it's 27.5 by 2.8, wider rims as well. So what this does is it gives you a little bit more float and traction, and it helps to disperse some of that weight. This is an AM bike, like all mountain, that's how they label it. It's the TRB1 AM. It does come in 2 sizes. This is the 17, but I measured the seat tube length. It was actually 17.5, and then they have a 19-inch. So it's great that they've got some color choices now. Black, which you see here, black on black with the plastic accents, really helps to hide those cables, and everything blends together. Got the RockShox up here, Yari, with those black anodized stanchions, 140 millimeters of travel, and then RockShox Monarch back here. This one just has kind of a lockout lever, as well as rebound, and same in the front, rebound down there, and then compression, which, almost locks out, so it's more of a clicker, and you can adjust that for stiffness. Air in both cases, so you can sag them to your body weight. It's a really beautiful looking bike, so it comes in that black or that blue color scheme. It doesn't seem like they have yellow anymore, but those shields, you can kind of take them off and customize them a little bit. I was at Interbike a year or 2 ago, and they had like a camouflage edition. It was neat just to show what's possible. You could probably still find a couple of these floating around. Again, that's the TRB1 AM with a 20 mile per hour top speed limit. There's nothing to really designate it right now. It doesn't have the speed. It's called the same thing. Maybe they'll be adjusting that in the future, and that's why I'm doing these back to back, and also because I wanted to ride it and show you the suspension. The setup's basically the same, again, except for this one has a smaller chain ring in the front, and that's because you weren't going as fast. So the larger sprocket allows you to hit and maintain those higher speeds and keep a comfortable cadence. And then there's that more limited range, 11 to 40 tooth in the rear. Going is one thing, and being able to hop on this bike and have decent traction on these Well-Go pedals here, being able to stand over. You'll notice the top tube is really sloped. It gives you the lower standover height. If you look at it from the front, and I'm looking at the yellow here because it stands out a little bit more than the black, it does bulge out a little bit. And there are a couple times where I've grazed my knee just a little bit, you know, and it's tough because a lot of these electric bikes are a bit fatter because they have that down tube battery. And I love how hidden this one is and just where the weight's positioned. It's pretty nice, and there's plenty of clearance here for that longer travel suspension, but it is fatter. I think it's fatter than average down here, and maybe that's not such a big deal because, you know, my feet aren't having an issue, but my knees bow in a little bit when I pedal. So I'll do some shots on that. Then this is the sort of the power on-off setup right here. You can just turn this to the left to off, and then push it in and all the way over, and then this plastic thing pops up, and that's where the battery is. So you can pull this up, slide it out. It's pretty neat. There we go. It's 8.8 pounds on that battery pack. Again, the exact voltage is 36.6 and then 21 amp hours, so a total of 762.3 watt hours. It can be charged on or off the bike, which is kind of neat. And we've got the charger right over here. You just plug into that little circular port there. We've got a metal tip. Looks like it could kind of screw in a little bit or maybe make it more secure. Let's try this out. Yeah, look at that. You can actually screw that in and really you know, get yourself a solid connection. This is a 4 amp charger, so it's a little bit faster than average, but it's also heavier than average at about 2.2 pounds. So I don't know, the size on this and the durability seems really great. BESV, it's almost like overkill. Some of their products are just so custom and, you know, really beautiful and special in that way. And then you just turn this into the off position. Kind of clicks down just like that. Now the key does have to be left in when you're riding the bike. It doesn't come out, but they've got this folding design, so you could kind of leave it in and it sort of disappears, and then that activates the display. This is like the Brose Classic display. Some companies do their own designs. You might notice the Specialized Levo has like a button panel on the side of the bike itself. I like this display because it's removable like that, and there's a little USB port built into the bottom. That's USB Type A. I'm estimating that puts out 5 volts, 500 milliamps of power, but you could mount your phone or maybe a GPS or just some other portable electronic device. But even if you don't, this display is pretty big. It's kind of backlit. See, it comes a little bit brighter when you start to interact with the buttons here. Shows your assist level, so we're in sport right now, which is the highest, down to tour, cruise, or off. And then there's this little arrow. That's actually walk mode. So if I held the down button, it would give me a little bit of assistance. So we got this steep hill to climb here. I'm gonna try to do it with walk mode. So I go down from sport to tour, cruise, and then now there's the walk mode. I press the little button. Speed in the center here in miles per hour. If you want to change that, it's a little bit tricky. You have to kind of, you know, turn the battery to on and then turn the display off and then hold menu when you do the on, and sometimes it switches, sometimes it doesn't. It didn't work that time, but I have done it. I actually switched this bike from kilometers per hour, and I have a guide back in the forums for that too. 10 ticks on that battery infographic. That's great. That's like 10% increments. And then down here we have time right here, trip time, total miles, total time, clock, and then trip distance, and then trip average speed and trip time. So, you know, you just kind of cycle through. Same thing with this button over here, the little circular button. Otherwise, it's just up and down to add or remove power. It's pretty simple. And the cockpit is nice. It's great quality stuff. We've got Magura MT4 hydraulic brake levers here with adjustable reach. I call these like 3-finger, but you know, I think you could also use them with just a couple fingers. Adjustable reach brings them back. The way the piston's set up, it's supposed to be really smooth. This is definitely like a mountain bike specific part that's a little bit nicer. It's one of the upgrades. And then huge 203 millimeter discs, okay? So rather than 180, which you see on a lot of bikes, 180 and 160, or maybe 180 on both, they went all the way up to 203, and I think that really helps you manage the additional weight of the bike and speed and power. And these are larger than average dual piston calipers, so front and rear. That's really neat. 12mm through axle in the rear, 15 up front, boost hub spacing, so that gives you a sturdier spoke bracing angle, you know, and it gives you a little bit more stiffness and control. So the whole bike is just, it's beefier. Like the bigger tires match the kind of enlarged frame. You'll notice that the handlebars on this one, they have like an Originate, more of a riser stem. It almost looks like 45 degrees or something. And I was asking James about that, a rep, and he said, well, that's because if you turn really hard, then it raises the shifter mechanism and the brake lever so it won't hit the plastic body, whereas it would before. And you know, you just don't want to scratch this thing up. It's so nice. And this gives it a more upright body position. You get one of these online for, you know, 20 bucks or something, and you could have yourself more of an upright body position too. Some people get a shorter stem. I'm going to go back over here and showcase the default stem here. So see how it's a little bit more aggressive, like angled down, and if I turn really hard, you can come into contact with the frame. That's why they did that. Again, really nice to see internally routed cables on this. I'm just gonna straighten it out. Even with the yellow accents, the cables are still pretty hidden, and the bike is set up really well. It's very purpose-built. Again, just very custom. Over on the left-hand side here, we've got the seat post dropper lever, and then this is a KindShock Lev multi-position dropper. Nice to have that too for getting on and being able to get your full leg extension, especially when you're riding faster and maybe you're spinning. The Brose motors, they do seem to support you up to like 120 RPM pedal stroke, so it's not like it fades out like some of the Yamaha PW motors where it was like, you know, I was talking about climbing the hill and I shift down to support and give a little bit more body power. But if the motor drops out, then you have to shift to a higher gear and you're just kind of lumbering along. I feel like this is a nice motor in terms of, it gives you that active option, a wider range of pedal stroke cadences. So 11 speeds, we've got the Shimano Dior XT levers here, two-way small lever, and then this is like actually 4 steps on the larger lever, which goes to lower gears. Locking grips, yeah, it's just, there's a lot here. And again, I think some of my complaints, it's like, well, you know, the frame, it's a little bit different, a little bit wider, but this isn't solid. This is just plastic. This is to cover it and help it look beautiful. When you look into the bottom, you can see some bolts and stuff. That's all hidden pretty well. And then the way that the battery's sort of exposed, and then the frame tubing on the sides helps to keep it stiff. The bike rides really well, but it does feel a little bit heavier. This is the kind of bike for someone who's okay with that extra weight, and it does give you a sense of momentum and just a solid feel when riding. Okay, so I'm in a parking lot. I'm gonna just hop on this thing and show you the motor and try to provide some feedback about how it feels. Again, I'm on the pavement here because I'm trying to respect the Class 3 legislation around what trails you can ride on. Go ahead and turn this to the on position again. Activates the display pretty quickly. And we're up in sport mode. I'm gonna drop the seat a little bit here. So there we go, put it in the lower position. You can see it rising. It's not like it has set points. It's a variable height dropper. Definitely love that. I'm just gonna start pedaling around. Feeling pretty stable with those plus size tires, but you can see how close my knees are here. Do some shifting. A little bit of mashing there because the bike doesn't have the shift detection going on. Okay guys, we're in a bike lane on the side of a street. You can ride a Class 3 bike, maybe get to work or get to the trail. I am going to enable that clutch. I've put it in the up position on the Dior XT derailleur, just so it'll be a little bit tighter, make shifting a little bit harder sometimes. But you know, again, it's gonna keep that chain from bouncing off, which is nice when you're going a little bit faster and maybe over bumpy terrain. So let's do it. Still really surprised and impressed with how quiet the TF Trekking Fast motor is from Brose. It's really smooth and quiet. I definitely appreciate that. I'm in the highest level of assist, which is sport, and we're gonna try to hit that 28. there we go. That's what 28 feels like. James is behind me, and he is just about there. So, you know, we were definitely ahead of him the whole time. He can only go up to 20. Climbing that hill, it dropped down to 27, 26, just because we were climbing, but pretty satisfying. And again, no shift detection here, so there's a little bit of popping, maybe a bit of mashing when I was shifting. I was trying to ease up a little bit. Again, it's measuring the rear wheel speed, pedal cadence, and pedal torque, so it's pretty dynamic. And if you shift thoughtfully, you shouldn't have much of an issue with the banging. Okay guys, now we're on the older TRB1. This one had some different gearing setup, 32 teeth up here, still narrow wide. I'm gonna chase James. He's on the new one, which goes up to about 28 miles per hour. Just to give you a feel for how the motors might sound slightly different, not that much though, and then how much faster he's gonna be able to go than us, because he's on the new Class 3. I hit 20 pretty quickly, but James, yeah, he smoked us, got to the light. It's pretty cool. Now you're mounted to the handlebars. I'm just gonna follow James around a little bit and we'll make it to the trail. Okay. Thanks, dude. Yep. We got the yellow light. My knees occasionally on this bigger top tube, just the plastic bulge at the top. Nice. Both of these bikes are about 60 pounds, so you know, you notice it when you're getting started, especially because I'm trying to pedal gently so I can shift gears without mashing, but the motor kicks in pretty quickly because the bike's just heavier. It takes a little bit more effort to get it going, and lifting it, trying to ollie it, or you know, pop little jumps, lift up the front handlebars, even getting over that curb. There's a little bit more weight, but it's pretty well distributed right here. Again, 8.8 pounds on that battery pack and like 6.5 on the motor there. high-end components, really unique look. You know, it's hard to add battery capacity without adding weight, and I think they've disguised the battery really well. They've positioned that weight well. This one's $49.99, whereas the older one, which I don't know if they're making that one anymore, still supporting it, still have the battery, it's the same battery and everything, but the one that went 20 miles per hour, you know, that was $44.99. So they are charging a little bit more. It's interesting to see because this is a bigger company. BESV is owned by Darfun, which is like this international company that makes like batteries and some solar panels and stuff. And I just feel like they've gone all out with a lot of their models are very unique, and that's what we see here as well. So I hope that gives you some insight and some feedback. I welcome your feedback. Maybe you own this bike or you've seen the different versions, you have some other tips about how to use the display. For the full written review, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there, try to follow the rules, and ride safe.